Hi friends, hello, happy Thursday. Welcome to Craft Your Joy Live. I'm Lisa Hetrick. I'm super excited to be here with you today. And there's been tons of friends popping in already. So, hello everyone. Hi Tammy, Cherie, Judith, Rhonda, Anel. Hello Anel. Yay. Okay, friends. It's been a big week, right? Okay, so today's Thursday. My newest release with Gina K Designs happened on Tuesday, called Merriest Season of All. Whoosh. It feels like it's been like 2 weeks since then, but it hasn't been. So, hello everyone. I've got people popping in. And don't forget, there's always the replay. No worries, Cheryl. Okay, friends, we are going to dive into today's tutorial. So today's tutorial is all about, we're going to paint the Swan from my newest stamp set, and we're going to talk about preserving whites in watercolor and how to use blacks. And we're coupling back on the tutorial from last week. We're kind of continuing that tutorial about creating values of color. We're going to use one color today to create this. So super, super fun. Okay, let's just dive in. Hello, if you're just popping in or if you're new here, I'm Lisa Hetrick. Welcome to Craft Your Joy Live. I try to go live every week with a fun tutorial, whether it is watercolor and painting related or watercolor techniques with your paper crafting projects. So super, super fun. And yeah, we're going to dive right in today. Let's go ahead to the overhead cam. Also today, if you have questions, don't hesitate to put them in the chat. Just put like a Q in front of it or a QQ. My chat is over here on this side of my camera. So I will be looking at it throughout the entire live today. And also, if you are new here in my lives, the tutorials aren't as focused as much on the dynamics of making the card. We will make the card, but I do spend quite a bit of time on a tutorial or a lesson in watercolor. And I have found that you all really like that. So that's what we're going to do today. All right, friends, let's dive in and head to our overhead camera. I have everything here. Now, all of the supplies I'm using today are linked below in the description, and they're on YouTube and Facebook, so they're linked. This is the inspiration for the card that we're going to make today. Here is the new stamp set, Merriest Season of All, and I am also going to bring in, oops, looks like that just fell. A bunch of things fell out of it. I'm also going to bring in Merry Everything. And I think we're going to use one of the sentiments from here, or we're going to use something from here. This is my stamp set that released last September with Gina K Designs. It's still available. I wanted to share it today to show you that all of the elements from this stamp set are also in proportion to this stamp set. So if you're thinking about adding to your collection for the holiday season, and you didn't get the chance to pick this one up last year, it's still available and still tons of inspiration on the channel, on this channel, on my YouTube channel, using this set. And I'll be integrating this a lot more into the holiday season. But I think we're going to use the sentiments from it today. I used Merry and Bright from it on this card that I shared on Tuesday, and I think I might use that again. I also used this brand new background called Snowfall, which is available at Gina K Designs right now. I did think I saw this morning that it might have sold out. If you're interested in that, get on that wait list because she did reorder everything. Okay, let's dive in. Okay, we are going to start. Like I said, all of the supplies I'm using are linked down below in the description. So, but I will talk about them along the way. This is our pieces for the cards, but first I want to get going with talking about subtle whites with gray. I've got two things going here. Hello, Susanna from Finland. Hello. So we're going to talk again about values of color. So last week we did a tutorial. Let me grab that card. It's right here. We did this tutorial last week, and I talked about using one color and creating subtle variations of that color in watercolor with values by changing the value of watercolor by adding water. So we're going to do that again today with grays. And I'm going to show you a gray. This is a black with black or grays. I've got Slate Gina K ink. I love this ink. It's a great gray. It also can be a subtle black. You could also do this technique with any of the blacks, the Obsidian, Amalgam, but I really like the Slate. And I have a tube of watercolor in carbon black, and we're going to talk about the values of watercolor. Now, I shared this watercolor last week. This is Tonic watercolor from St. Louis Art Supply, and they are now offering you, viewers, if you're interested, there's a link in the description. They're offering my viewers $5 off any of your orders. So if you like to shop small like I do, St. Louis Art Supply is in St. Louis. Go check them out. Check them out. They're a small art supply store, and they ship all over the world, and they have a lot of really interesting products, but they also have a lot of watercolor brands. Their Tonic brand is like one of my new favorites that I'm trying. Oh, Cheryl just shared that she's been waiting for this tutorial because she's been playing around with painting daisies. Yes, yes, yes. So, oh, and Jeanette just shared, I love Merry Everything. I love that set too. Okay, so painting daisies. Daisies are a white flower. So the techniques that we're going to learn today are fantastic for any kind of white thing that you're trying to paint. Now, one of the best ways to deal with white is you preserve the whites of your paper, whether you're using your watercolor paper or you're using your Gina K white paper and doing some alcohol markers or doing any other medium. You want to leave some of the white of your paper to kind of show through. But let's talk about the values of color. So I'm just going to take a little bit of Slate ink. So I've shared this many, many times, how you can take your Gina K inks and add water to them. And then we're going to get different, you can use them as a painting medium. Now what I want to do is last week we talked about the different strengths, the different values of watercolor that you can achieve just by adding water. So you can see me adding more water to this Slate ink, and I can get almost like that dove gray look. Oh, Slate ink is beautiful for this technique. I'm going to add a little bit more. Add a little bit more water. Really water that down a little bit more, and look at that. Almost pale, almost white. Why do we use gray to create white? Why wouldn't we use white paint or white watercolor? Well, you can. You could totally do that. But I'm always going to say add a little touch of gray to that white watercolor, because what you're simulating is the look of shadows and light. This is kind of big thinking, and I don't tend to get too big thinking and nerd out this far. But when you're using gray and values of black to create gray in your watercolor projects or our card project today, what you're doing is creating this sense of shape and the sense of light. So there will be lights and darks. So we're creating shadows and white with the values of gray. And that's the simplest way that I can explain it. And then we're just going to paint the swan and see how it goes. So I'm going to take some of this carbon black, and you can see that's an intense black. So I started out with the Slate ink and did the values of that color. If I was going to paint the swan right now with the Slate ink, I would be using probably this value of that Slate ink. So It's a lot. That is like super duper skim milk, right? Very, very little pigment, in this case ink, a whole lot of water. I'm going to turn my paper this way and then just add a little bit of water here. But if we're starting out, like here's that 100% of that carbon black. And then I'm going to add, the more water I add, look, I can immediately get those values of that color to go down even more. That's kind of a medium. Look, let's push that back a little bit. Now I'm going to add a little bit more water. And this is what we're going to do for painting. I can get that dove gray. Now, you can take a peek. We're going to talk a little bit about warm and cool grays too. With the slate, we're able to achieve more of a cool-ish gray. That's actually it's actually a little warmer. The black watercolor is a little cooler. So this is just kind of fun. Add a little bit more water and see if I can get that really, really toned down even more. And I can. So I can go from this really dark, keep adding more water, and I can get that really, really pale gray, almost white. It's gray. It's telling me that when I'm painting with flowers, if I'm painting a flower and I'm just using a little bit of this color in some of the areas of that white flower or that daisy, Cheryl, what it's showing me, what it's telling my eyes is that, oh, there's some light and shadow happening on that object. So that's what we're going to do with our swan today. Okay. Try to really simplify these kind of big artsy concepts, right? Which are fun to learn. But hey, we want to make a card and we want to have some fun with it. And we don't want to get too overwhelmed. And this is a great way to do that. Let me just kind of pop this over here. Let's bring in our card base and we'll get going with this. So I am using, where is it? Anyway, I don't know where I put it. Oh, here it is. I am using, you guessed it, Strathmore Ready Cut Watercolor. I was literally down to my last sheet last week, friends, in our tutorial together. I had to order and I stocked up. I can't believe I let myself get down to my last sheet. I usually stock up and order this like 3 or 4 at a time. So I totally stocked up. I'm all ready to go. I've cut my base. So I've got a piece of, this is cherry red cardstock. That's going to be our base. But I cut my, cut the watercolor to using the master layouts die. And I've put that down below in the description. I really like this little scalloped edge. And I thought it was a really nice, it goes really well with this whole kind of like shape in the swan. So that's what we're going to do. I've got my swan here. Now, we're not going to ink up the swan with an ink. We are going to paint on some of the carbon black watercolor onto the swan and see how it goes. Okay, let's just take, and I don't want a full strength amount of that watercolor. So I'm going to just kind of water it down here to about a 2% milk consistency. I do need it to be a consistency because as you can see, when that watercolor hits the swan and hits our stamp here, our clear stamp, our photopolymer stamp, it kind of pills up a little bit. So I need a little bit of color to be on those lines so that I can get my impression. But I don't want it to be, you can see it's pilling up right here in the hole here. Let's see what we get. I'm going to have the swan kind of go off the edge a little bit. I'm going to bring it up to in that first third because I want to do a little bit of water underneath it with the swoosh in the stamp. So I'm going to stamp this down very, very gently and just kind of kiss it to the paper, okay? And all I was going for here was a little bit of an impression of that swan. Now we're going to dive in and we're going to start to give some shape to the swan. So I've got a little shape here. I'm going to start off with a smaller brush. I'm using a number 6 and it's wet, but not like super wet. I've got a pool of color here. Let's see, do we need to come in a little tighter? Let's come a little tighter. I think that's good. I think that's helpful. Okay, and I'm just going to work with the color that's here. Brush is wet, paper is dry. So I am doing a wet into dry technique. Essentially, what I'm hoping to achieve is a no-line watercolor look, but I do have some lines here. So you can see I'm just going to kind of pull this out just a little bit, just so I can get my shape going. So I'm working with the watercolor that's here, and I'm just gently touching the edges of that swan. Oh, I love this. I love this. Catherine just says, love that just an impression technique. Yes. Now, up here, I kind of lost the head a little bit, but that's okay. We're going to keep going. And remember, there's no paint on my brush. I'm just kind of going in and I'm working with what's here and see if I can get it to move so I can get my shape. It's not really moving too much. Again, that's okay. I'm going to come in, I'm going to go grab a smaller brush, a number 2. And the reason why I'm just grabbing this number 2 is I'm going to lift some of this color. This is the skim milk version of my carbon black. And I'm going to come around my edge here just a little bit. Just following that line. It's very faint, but it's there. And I'm going to follow that line, just kind of come around. So if you don't get a good impression, no worries. I brought it right back. Now I'm going to clean off this brush, and now it's just completely clean. No pigment. Brush is wet. Paper is dry. We're doing wet into dry. And I'm just going to work with the color that's here. Not so much focusing on the beak yet. I'm just going to work with what's here and move it around. Got a little bit of an intensity of a color up here. And I'm just going to keep moving it around. And I'll keep adding a little bit more. Just now we're starting to get the shape here. And we've got some whites of the paper coming through, and we have some of the grays. Catherine just had a really good question. Let me blend this out really quick. So what I'm doing is I'm just feathering out this color by kind of lifting it, adding a little bit more water, and lifting. And then I'm going to come in here, just kind of bring the shape of that neck back, just ever so slightly, okay? Now, we've got a lot going on here. I'm going to let this dry for a minute. We'll answer Catherine's question. And I'm going to actually pop this question up. Catherine, this is a great question. How much water is on your brush? Are you dabbing it on your towel or the edge of the water jar? Very good question. So I've got this little towel here. Look at, that's our slate ink. Look at all these beautiful colors. So I'm dipping it into my water, and I am dabbing it off a little bit. So what I'm doing is just dabbing off the edge, and I'm working with just a little bit of water on my brush. So it's kind of a back and forth thing. And because I'm working with just a little bit of pigment on the brush, and then I'm adding, moving the color that we have here around and adding water, it's just a tiny, tiny bit. Okay. Cheryl just said, it's almost magical how the gray tricks your eye to see the white swan. Exactly. Cheryl, you've got it. So you can totally apply this technique to any kind of floral, which I have. So I think we need to do our next paint, pause and paint. Maybe we need to do some white flowers. Okay. So it tricks your eye into thinking, I've got something going here, right? There's a white swan that's emerging, and that white swan has some sun shining down on it. So we're getting casting shadows from the water and the sun and all these things. These are not the things that you're thinking about when you're creating a card, but they become like kind of subliminal in the background. And once you know the technique, you know the technique. All right, so I'm going to, now for the rest of this, I'm going to come in and paint some water in here. Because I have some hard edges, we're going to paint some water in here. Then we're just going to take some of this light gray, and I'm just going to drop some of it in. Very random. And you can see me going in here, getting some water, just kind of tapping it off just a little bit. And then I'm just going to go back and forth, kind of scrubbing along the way, but adding that little tiny bit of pigment. And I'm just going to get this to move a little bit. That little tiny bit of pigment is adding just a little bit of gray to the white paper, but we're still kind of preserving the white that's there. I'm going to come back. We're going to add some more intensity to this. But right now I'm focusing on just getting a little bit more value in this area and this area of the neck, just to kind of create, oh, that was a lot of value. Just kind of create a little bit of that illusion of white. Just kind of blending some things out a little bit. I think I really like that value that's happening there. Now, I'm going to come up around here. Now we're going to start to add a little bit more shadow. So I've got over here, I have full strength black, middle of the road, right? So whole milk, 2% milk right here, super skim milk, almost like coconut milk right here. Let's come in and just grab a little bit of this darker value, and we're going to drop a little bit right here, just along the back of that swan, just a tiny bit. Now, cleaning off my brush, dabbing it off a little bit on my towel, come in, and I don't want this to be sopping wet because I already have a lot of water on the watercolor paper. And then I'm just going to scrub, just kind of go back and forth a little bit. And then just let that fade in to what we already have down here. All right, coming up around this neck, we're going to do the same thing. Oh, no worries, Cheryl, you'll always have the replay. Hope the dentist goes well. I'm going to come up around here and just add a little bit more there because I had kind of that hard line, cleaning off my brush, dabbing it off. Don't want that brush to be super wet, but I do want to come around and just kind of feather this out. I'm tapping and feathering that color out. Tap. I call it brush dancing. If any of you have taken my watercolor classes, you've heard me say that. Brush dancing, dancing the brush around with the water. Now I'm going to come up around here, and I'm coming in again. First with a little bit of water on my brush. Paper is dry. I'm going to add just a little tiny bit of water just right here. That's actually a lot. So continuing on with our discussion about values and creating values of color, look at all the different values that we're able to create with this black. We've got a lot of different values of gray happening just by adding water. And this is a very controlled way to handle your watercolor. So sometimes people tell me they're afraid of watercolor. I'm just tapping it in. Okay, and then I'm going to clean off my brush. People tell me that they're afraid of watercolor because it feels like you're a little bit out of control. Here's a great way to control what you achieve. Oh, look at that. I love it. Okay. Brush is clean. See this little bit of a hard line I got going right here? I'm just going to feather that out. Just going back and forth. Tap, back and forth. Love that. Hi, Tammy. Okay, still feel like this line is a little bit harsh right here, and it kind of is. So I'm just going to go back in and add a little bit more around it until I feel like that's kind of feathered out a little bit. And I actually kind of like that level of intensity right here on the neck of, well, the base of the neck in the Swan, because you can really get that feeling of there being like a shadow of light there and maybe kind of a reflection up from the water. Okay, now I like the head the way it is. I'm just gonna come in and kind of tap it in. I'm gonna come in with my smaller brush, my number 3, and we're gonna paint that beak in, the beak back in. Now, the beak has a little bit of white opening. I'm not going to worry about that because the beak of my Swan here is, because I had that watercolor, it kind of already bled through into that white area. So I'm just going to roll with it because I really kind of like the way it looks. I've got my tiny, tiny brush. I'm actually going to come in, put a little bit of that carbon black right here with my tiny brush. Brush is wet, paper is dry, brush is not sopping wet. I just have a little bit of pigment here to where I can go in and kind of bring in some definition here. And then paint that eyeball out a little bit and kind of go over it like that. One of the beautiful things, and I've shared this on many tutorials, I'm going to switch up my brush and get a little bit, a number 2 here, so it's still a thin brush. I'm going to work with the watercolor that's here and just kind of spread this out just a smidge. I need to grab some more. One of the beautiful things that I've shared on this channel and with our stamps, because I kind of share a lot of watercolor techniques with our stamps and how you can paint and you can do this no line look and you kind of have this feeling of you creating a painting, is that you can do this. You can edit in and out certain items in your stamp based on how you paint. You can paint over it. You can paint it in. You can do so many fun things. So I think it's super fun because you can expand your knowledge base of your techniques, and you can also just make more use of the stamps that you have. So any kind of stamp that is a big honkin' wide open stamp, you can see this one is already well loved. You have so much opportunity to color within it and do techniques within it. So I am digging the way the Swan looks. This is coming together so quickly. I'm loving it. Okay, I feel like we've got still a little bit of a hard line here, and we definitely have a hard line happening on this bottom. And I'm not like upset about it or overwhelmed. I'm just going to be careful and come in with a little bit more of that watercolor right from this area, which means it's definitely going from a 2% to a skim milk. Take my brush and just kind of feather that out. And what I mean by feathering is just tap, tap, tap. Tap what's here, work with what's here, and just kind of brush it out. Okay. Now, right here, we've got a little bit of intensity of color, and then it kind of fades out a little bit. I don't super dislike it, but I am going to add a little bit back in. And just add a little bit of that color back in. I hope you were able to join the live on Tuesday and catch the new release with Gina K. It was pretty amazing. All of the holiday releases, all of the holiday stamps. Now, got a lot of gray values going on. I want to make sure I preserve some of my whites, so I am going to do a lifting technique. So my brush is clean. I'm going to come back in here and just kind of lift up and away. Just follow that neckline, and you can see that I pulled some of that watercolor away. So some of the gray is still in the paper, but I'm pulling away some of that color. Now the paper's wet, so that's how I'm able to do it, to just kind of bring back some of those whites. This technique can also be done with colored pencil and pastels and all of those other mediums similarly. Today we're focusing on the watercolor. All right, see this hard line I got going here? I don't love it. So I'm gonna just kind of come in, add a little bit here to the bottom, and I could just let it go, and I might just let it go. I'm gonna clean off my brush a little bit. It's not sopping wet. You can see all my little dabs of paint. I think I'm gonna leave that and let that kind of do its thing, but I'm going to just kind of scrub over this edge a little bit and see if I can just smooth it out. Now, blacks are staining. This particular watercolor is staining. So that means when I first painted it, I laid it down in a big brush stroke and I didn't kind of feather it out right away. So I've got that hard line, but I'm kind of okay with it because of what we're going to do next. We're going to add a little bit of the swoosh. All right, I see something I want to try. He's right here in the net. You know what? No, I'm not going to. I'm resisting the urge. So at this stage of your painting, you may be in a spot where you're like, oh, I want to add a little bit more. Oh, I want to add a little bit more. And you could totally do that. So if I brought in this painting, you can see that this card original, you can see there's a lot more of a darker value of that carbon black. So my grays are a lot darker. When I painted this beautiful swan, we've got more whites coming through and we have more of an illusion of understanding with our eyes that that swan is white. So you can do it all different ways. You could also do it with other colors. And we did that last week with the values of yellow. But see how I used Copic marker in the swan here? You could easily do this technique with pink and the values of pink and kind of create a different kind of swan. So, super fun. Love it, love it, love it. Okay, let's pop this up over here. Now, I want to come in next. We're doing so well with time too. Super excited. I want to come in next and I want to introduce the swoosh. First, what I'm going to do is wipe this off because I know me, my hand's going to go in it or my painting's going to go in it. So smooth and pretty. Yes, Cherie. Oh, do you hear the birds? I have the windows open because it's gorgeous, finally. Gorgeous day. So the birdies are making all their beautiful sounds. Okay, I'm grabbing the swoosh. This is a paintbrush swoosh from the set. And this swoosh, let me grab the right block here. I intentionally designed this swoosh to kind of work with the back of the swan. But it also works with the bottom of the swan. So when you kind of nest it this way, so you can kind of make it look like water underneath the swan. And that's what we're going to do. And I'm going to mix this up. Here's our color combinations for the card today. The grays, cherry red, and tranquil teal. I love, love this color combination for holiday cards. I just think it has this real retro kind of quality to it. It gives your holiday cards kind of a modern twist. I also mentioned on the live on Tuesday, the release, that this swan and this set, even though it's kind of holiday focused with its sentiments and its greenery, you could easily change this up and use this for other holidays. It would be fun for a girl birthday. a friend birthday. It would be great for a baby shower or any kind of birth announcement or anything fun like that. I think it would just be really fun. And it was kind of I just love the swans. And I shared on my inspiration for it was the song, the Days of Christmas song. Everyone knows it. 7 swans a swimming. Everyone knows it, right? So when I was illustrating my stamp set for the holiday season, I was literally singing that song. And I was thinking about doing an entire stamp set with icons for each one of the numbers in the song. And then I landed on the swan, and I just loved the concept. Okay, I'm nerding out. I kind of went out. Now I'm inking up the swoosh with the Tranquil Teal. And I'm going to come under here. Let's move it over here a little bit. And kind of create, and I'm hoping, I haven't tried this yet, that this creates this illusion of water that I want underneath the swan. And it is, and I love it. Now you could go with a paler blue, but I want to just share what we're going to do while it's still wet. I kind of wanted to move the Tranquil Teal around a little bit and just give it a little bit of a finishing. So I'm working with what's here and just kind of moving that color around, up and underneath, and around a little bit. Just, that Tranquil Teal, so nice. I'm going to change up my brush a little bit to something a little thinner. A number 6, my brush is wet. I'm still kind of banking on using this Tranquil Teal, and I'm just going to feather it out a little bit. Just going over it. I want to retain those paintbrush lines, but I also want to soften them a little bit and get them to move. I love it. It's kind of coming up into the tail here. I just love that. Look at that color. That Tranquil Teal is absolutely beautiful to paint with. And look, now we've got an abstract thing going on. This would be an amazing painting, even if you didn't make the card. Oh, Cindy, thank you so much. She said, I love to watch you paint. You make it look so easy. Anna said, no matter which order I watch your replays, you happen to give an answer to my current watercolor trials. Painting white. I had to see this live. That's so cool. That's so cool. Thank you, Anna. I'm glad that you're finding the tutorials super helpful for the stage that you're in. Now, I'm loving that. We've got that illusion of the water kind of happening underneath the swan. And we also have this big swoosh of Tranquil Teal as an abstract underneath it. I'm just loving that. I'm loving the way this looks. This is coming out way better than I even thought it would. Okay. Now, let's go ahead and move to getting this on the card. Now, look at that color. I love that Tranquil Teal with the cherry red. Look at this beautiful contrast. Now, if we pick this up and we put this on another cardstock base, like the pink, like this pink, this beautiful pink. Look at that. How gorgeous is that? You can literally change up what it is that the mood, the season, the theme, just by changing that watercolor. I mean, changing your background. This is Barely There cardstock with Gina K. I absolutely love Barely There. It is Barely There, but it is the softest pink, but it's kind of a cream. But look, if you added this to that card base, you get a whole different kind of look for it. But since we're making a holiday card, we're going to add it to this cherry red. And now we've got these beautiful contrasts between the gray and the white swan and this beautiful Tranquil Teal up against that cherry red. All right, I've nerded out enough about color. Let's get some glue. Let's pull my pin here, and let's just make sure we got some good glue going. Okay, I'm just going to add some Gina K glue. Really really just lightly. I need to clean out my glue tips so that I can get some more glue going here. I'm opening the card. Oh, I boogered that up. Oh, well, it'll dry. It's a little bit wet. I'm opening the card up. I got this question last week. I think it was from Kathy. She said, why do you open your card up? Because for me, it helps my eyeballs kind of line up. Here's my center. It helps my eyeballs kind of line up my card better. So then I get it on there and then I close it up and I can see where I am. And I'm kind of digging it. It looks a little off. It feels a little off, but then I can move it because I've used that glue. Oh my gosh, this card is so fun. I'm loving it. Okay. Now, I'm going to bring in some pieces. We're actually going to finish on time today, friends. I'm going to bring in some pieces that I'd already stamped out. So I used the poinsettia pieces, and I used my red velvet. So we have cherry red cardstock, and I used red velvet. Red velvet ink is a little bit more of a warmer red. So I thought, hey, we got all these cool colors going. Let me add some warm colors in and see how I feel about that. And then in my original, I originally did a little bit of gold. Now, I think rose gold would be amazing. Like if I do, and maybe we'll do that on another tutorial. If I stamp some rose gold in this laurel leaf, that would be absolutely beautiful. That would be a really pretty baby girl kind of card. But instead I used grass green because, again, I want these contrasts happening in my colors in this color palette that I picked with that Tranquil Teal, a little bit of these grays, got that the two different kinds of reds, and then we're going to throw some green into it to just kind of make it pop and come to life. Now, I stamped the laurel piece, my laurel piece right here, and I stamped it in the grass green, and I trimmed it a little bit. I trimmed off the top two pieces because I wanted this to be a little bit smaller and not cover up so much of the swan. Oh, Monica shared, I love the swan, Lisa, so much. Thank you for creating it. Thanks so much for creating it. I tell you, I generally don't create character-like or animals. I draw them. Of course I can draw them. But I really just, something spoke to me about the elegance and the peacefulness of a swan. And it made me just want to draw it for a holiday stamp set. So I jumped out of my box, friends, and said, yep, we're doing this. Let's do it. Let's see what we come up with. All right, so I've stamped this. I'm going to just use my neck here as kind of my anchor point, as well as like right above that water. And the beautiful thing about these flowers or the leafery pieces that are in this set, or any of my other sets, is that you can always just kind of flip them around to see which way you want to place them, which makes it kind of fun. All right, going to add a little bit of glue. Just add 2 more here. You could stop here with 1 if you want, but I tend to always want to add in 3s. No particular reason other than I think it's nice and appealing. It is appealing to the eye. Let's just pop that right there and commit. Now, add a little bit of glue here. And then just kind of pop this right here and have it go off the edge a little bit. Just kind of playing around, kind of like that little swoosh happening. Now, I want to have this little piece of laurel leaf going up underneath and kind of coming across the bottom of the swan here. So I'm going to cut quite a bit of this tail off. Let's take that off. Quite a bit of that tail. Let's cut a little bit more. My handy dandy scissors here. And then add some glue. Oh, this card is so fun. I got one more little thing I want to do to the swan that I think you're gonna fine fun. Okay, I'm going to pop this up underneath here. I need to cut more of that tail. Let's just cut the whole tail off. Just love that you have this kind of flexibility with your stamps, that you get to dictate how you want it to go. I really would love this laurel leaf and I want it to come out, but I don't want it to cover up like all of this beautiful swoosh we've got going here. And I didn't want it to cover up the entire swan. So there we go. Love that. Oh, Suzanne just shared. Oh, you know what? I'm going to pop that up because that's so cool. This is beautiful, Lisa. Thank you so much. Thank you. I've been trying to create a polar bear for several weeks and it's been terrible. Oh, Suzanne, it probably hasn't been that terrible. Give yourself some grace. I'll try the watercolor techniques you've shown and I think it will be great. I think so too. Try it, and then kind of once you get a feel for how those whites look and that value of color that you're creating with the black watercolor or the gray watercolor, add more water. And once you get a feel for doing it that first time and it feels good to you and it's pleasing to the eye, you can adapt that technique to other mediums. You can easily do it with alcohol markers, colored pencils. With alcohol markers, you're going to use lighter shades of a gray and kind of work your way up to it. So super fun. You can do this. I can't wait to see what you create. Please, if you share it in social media or in the Gina K group or wherever you're going to share it, or email it to me, I'd love to see it. I'd love to see it. Oh, Diana said, I love this card already. Can't wait to get my set. I can't wait for you all to get this set and kind of create with me throughout this season that we're heading into. I have some fun ideas for this set and some fun ideas for Christmas cards, for holiday cards. In November, last year in November, I did a series, I think it was 4 videos, where we really honed in on some techniques. Last year it was colored pencil techniques and pastel pencil techniques. And it was just kind of all kinds of pencil techniques. We may do that again and with the swan. And I've also got in my brain an idea for the swan to create an ornament. So stay with me, friends, through the holiday season because I've got so many ideas for this set. Catherine just shared, I have a 3-foot swan head with a poinsettia wreath on its neck that you put out in your entryway at Christmas. I love having a swan stamp. Oh, that's so cool. That's so cool. I feel like I need that. I'd love to know where you got that, Catherine. I'd love to put that out for the holidays. May add some ducklings and a mate in the opposite direction for the next release. That's a great idea. Thank you, Rose. Okay, that's a great idea. All right, loving the way this looks. Now, I'm kind of going to keep my whites up here and preserve my whites, but you could easily like go in and add a beautiful background stamp. I just kind of want to keep this simple today. In my original design, I went and added that snowflake stamp. I could add some splatter. I could do a whole lot of things. But since we were really focusing on the beauty of the swan and focusing on the whites, we're going to keep it simple. Now I'm going to go in. Did I bring them over? Yeah, I did. I hid them from myself. I've got some of these rhinestones from Gina K. We're going to pop just a little bit of rhinestones in, and I'm going to pop them kind of around the head here. So I'm going to come up with a little dot, and then just kind of pop a little dot right here. I got my little pokey picker tool from Gina K. I love this because it's got that little wax piece on it. I'm going to put that medium-sized one. I've got the smaller one right here. Pop that in there. Ah, yes, Anna. She said she shared that the swan. I think I'm going to pop this big one up here. Nope, don't like it. I'm going to pop the medium one. Keep this simple. She shared that the swan is serene and very calming for the busy season. I would totally agree. I totally agree with you. I want to put a little, I'm going to leave it because I feel like I'm on the verge. My brain is on the verge of being like super nerdy and like, hey, let's add some more dots here. Let's add some more dots here, here. Nope, we're going to keep it simple. Lisa, I can't remember. Oh, she said, oh, Catherine said maybe Tuesday morning, TJ Maxx or Michael's. You know what? I bet you're right. We used to have a Tuesday morning in my town. I don't know what happened to it. I guess it closed. Definitely have a TJ Maxx and definitely have a Michael's. So we'll definitely keep an eye out for it. Now, I'm going to try something. I originally I stamped out those poinsettias in the red velvet. And as you know, I've done this many, many times. You can use your Gina K inks for watercolor. You can also stamp them on watercolor paper and then kind of go back in and move that color around a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm reactivating, going in, and now I stamped these. I already stamped these. I pre-stamped them. And I'm going back in right now with a little bit of water. And I'm able to reactivate that Gina K ink to just kind of smooth it out a little bit. Brush is clean, just a little bit of water on the tip of it. And I'm just kind of reactivating that red velvet and blending it around a little bit. So think about that when you're stamping. I'm going to leave this one alone because I've got those lines in. But look, I've gotten a little bit more contrast now between these two and this one. And then we have this green, and I'm loving the way this looks. I'm going to resist the urge to do anything else to it. One thing that is kind of teeny tiny bothering me a little bit is this harsh line and how this isn't meeting. So I'm going to just get a little bit of that carbon black on this little tiny brush and just kind of add that little tiny bit right there. Cleaned off my brush, came back in, just kind of feather that out a little bit, and then walk away, right? So the more you practice this kind of technique with your whites and your values of your watercolor by adding water, the more you're going to train your eye to see things that are like, I feel like I need to tweak that a little bit. And then stop, right? Because the more that your brain says, oh, I think I need to tweak that a little bit. Oh, how about a little bit more? Then you've gone over the edge, friends. And I've gone over the edge many, many times. And I've been like, oh boy, what did I do? I just kind of blew it. So we're going to resist the urge to do anything else to the swan. We're going to leave it. You know, I could paint in some feathers. Maybe we'll do that on another tutorial. Teach you a couple little techniques, little brushstroke techniques for adding in some feathers. That sounds like fun. Maybe we'll do that next week. Okay, now I want to pop back in with my sentiment. Now, a couple things. Lots of different sentiments. I'm going to grab the sentiment. I'm probably not going to use this, but I wanted to show it to you. The sentiment set that's a part of the incentive this month is one of them. It's all these super cute holiday sentiments. So you could do a really cute small sentiment right here, peace and joy. Oh, that would be really beautiful, and that would kind of keep up with the elegance of the card. But I'm gonna be a little extra. I'm gonna go in. We've got Merry and Bright, or the Merriest Season of All kind of doesn't fit with what I've done here. It's a little pushing the edges a little bit. So let's do Merry and Bright. Let's pop in with the Merry and Bright. Let me find my Merry and Bright. Let's pop that on here. I've got Obsidian. Barely There cardstock. What is saying? Stunning card. I love how it looks so different with the Barely There cardstock. I know. Like all the different cardstocks that you can add this to, you can completely change the theme. You could even use these poinsettia flowers, even though they have that shape of the poinsettia. I try to create flowers in all of my sets that if you just changed out the colors, you could really make them look like anything you want. And that's the beauty of creating these like graphic flowers. Okay. Yay, Trish, encouraging you to try. I hope so. I hope that these tutorials are encouraging and they kind of give you a little bit of energy, good vibrations to kind of jump in and give it a try. Okay, I'm using Obsidian. Now, I am stamping this Obsidian on watercolor paper. I kind of should get my Misty out so that I can hit it a couple times, but I'm going to go rogue and we're going to do it once. Just kind of getting up merry and bright, nice and juicy. I'm going to come right in here and just kind of put some nice pressure on that. Shampoo. Got it on the first try. Could have gone either way. Anybody ever just like finish their whole card? You get to the end. This is like me. I'm raising my hand like 1,000%. You get to the end of the card. You add in your sentiment and you've like literally boogered up your card because you either got some smoosh on it or you over smooshed your stamp. Me. Raising my hand. Okay. I love this. I love this card so much. I hope, I'm going to pull this back in about the values of the color. I'm going to try it again using my Slate ink. But look at our color. So Slate ink's going to give you a little bit of a warmer kind of gray. Using a black, depending upon the black, this is carbon black. It's going to give you more of a cool kind of gray. No matter what you use, try it. Rose said, "You're brave." I am brave. I just kind of winging it. I love the way this card came out. I love this swoosh. That swoosh stamp. Holy smokes, friends. You can use that with like anything in your stash. If you want to create a little bit of a painterly look to something, it's fantastic with that. Let me pull, I did a sample card that I shared on Tuesday, and I've got those cards here. Here it is. I used it as an anchor point for the other Christmas flower, and it just kind of creates a little bit of painterly whimsy in your project. I love it. Okay, loving the way this looks. One more thing. I grabbed right before, like a minute before I went live, I grabbed my watercolors that are metallic. I'm going to add just the tiniest smidgen. Oh, what did Catherine just said something to Susanna about Finland. Let me double back and see if I can see what she says. Oh, Susanna. Oh, I love that. I'm going to share that. Susanna just shared, I have an idea for an Independence Day card, as the swan is the national bird of my country. I did not know that. That's so cool. Thank you. I'm sure I'll have to work on it quite a few times, though. I bet you won't. I bet you'll get it on your first try. I will. I bet you can. So Susanna is from Finland, and the swan is the national bird of her country. That is so cool. That is so cool. Okay, my brush is clean. I'm going to come in. I've got this silver. I need to add a little bit of water to my silver watercolor here. I love this silver watercolor. Look at that. It's so pretty. We're just going to add just a smidge of it over the back of this bird. Just a smidge. It's just going to add a little extra shine. Subtle shine. Just kind of feather that out to the bottom. One other thing I wanted to share. Did you know I could have added that shimmer in with my watercolor when I was painting it, and you can get like that shimmery gray, subtle shimmery gray happening with that watercolor. But instead, I forgot, and I ended up adding it on top. So let's just turn that to the light a little bit. You can see that shimmer, and that's just adding a little extra subtle boost of shine to the back of that swan. Oh my gosh. I just love this card. Eek. This came out so beautifully, friends. So beautiful. Oh, double head again. Let's take that out. I did that last week too. Okay. I hope you got a lot out of today's tutorial. It was sort of like a little companion tutorial to last week's tutorial about color values and using water to change the value of your color. And in this case, we used it with black and gray this week to change the value of it to create the white swan. And we kind of totally nerded out about light and shadow and all these other artsy fartsy things that are really important. But I hope you got a lot out of today's tutorial. And you can see yourself doing this technique and having some fun with it. Okay, friends, if you're at all interested in being on my email list, I'd love to have you. That information is down below in the description. I also have a free community at my craftyourjoy.com classroom. I'd love to have you join me in the community. I share a lot of things there. There are several friends here that are in that community. And I keep adding more and more, and I keep planning more and more for it and how I want to use it. So I've kind of been testing it out this year to see how everybody's been feeling about it. My new Gina K release happened on Tuesday. That set is available now in the What's New section along with the entire release. I hope you really enjoy taking a peek at that. And friends, I will be back next Thursday again at 11:30. And I had some ideas pop in my head based on what we talked about today. And I really think I love that idea of doing the brush stroke techniques and kind of creating a little bit more, adding some more painterly effects with our stamp projects. So I think the swan's coming back next week. We'll see. Okay, friends, thanks so much for joining me. I'm just checking the chat real quick. Everybody learned so much. Thanks for all your questions. Thanks for being here with me. I just love this. This is kind of like the highlight of my week, coming in and being able to teach with you. I hope you're finding all of these tutorials super helpful, super useful. Okay, friends, I will see you next week. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you next week. Have a great week. Sending you into the weekend to craft your joy. I hope you use this technique and any of the others that I've shared. And yeah, I'll see you next week. Bye now.